Hello everybody, welcome back to Forza Horizon 4. Now a long time ago when Horizon 4 first came out, I did a little challenge where I went to see what was faster than the Bugatti Chiron up a very technical, twisty hill climb. And it was a lot quicker, I'll be honest. There were a lot of very stock cars, significantly faster than the Chiron. However, as of recent, the new Divo has been added to the game, and the Divo is basically the Chiron, but 30 pounds lighter and significantly better handling. And with that significant handling, but still the same brutal power and torque, what will be able to beat it then? But first I had to set a benchmark, and that is when I actually used the Divo. And it was pretty darn good, I will admit. The first Chiron felt heavy, because it was. And this one is still heavy, but it doesn't feel that way. The suspension is a lot nicer, the handling is a lot better, the acceleration is still just as brutal as always. In fact, you see we're getting up to some 73 miles an hour around the corner. It's 70 miles an hour maintained around the corner. That's a very impressive average. As we head around the final corner, the Chiron is brutally fast on this hill. As you go across the line from the uphill, now I typically mark the sign. That became a bit of debate later on, I will be honest, because I kind of lost where the sign was, but whatever. Yeah, I typically use this sign here, and then we launch again. I actually launched in second gear, which didn't really help. Yeah, so that was good on my part. There were a lot of issues on the downhill, shall we say, today. There were a lot of downhill run issues. But the Chiron was not, or the Divo. The Chiron Divo is basically the same car with a better handling. And a massive active wing. That's Koenigsegg levels of active aero. It's a lot better handling, very good handling for what it is. And I was very impressed, and it set a pretty hefty benchmark. A mile an hour and a half faster than the normal Chiron. But what do the other cars fare? And we start off with a pretty high PI car. 994 is the Rimac Concept 2. This, in theory, should absolutely humiliate it. It is all-electric, all-wheel drive, so the acceleration is brutal, and it makes 1,800 horsepower. Unfortunately, as you can see by the launch, there is a fair amount of wheel spin, and it's even heavier than the Chiron, which means the braking is not exactly the best. So while it is very brutally fast, it does struggle in the handling department, I will be honest. It is not as bad as you would think for an electric car, however, it does struggle. You see there, I'm not even trying, and it just gets over here and over here and over here, and in fact, despite being more powerful and electric and all-wheel drive, it is slower on the uphill, which means I would have to make up a lot of time on the downhill to beat the Chiron's 72.87 mile an hour average. And the gear ratios, because this actually has gears, does not help this vehicle at all. It is not helping this car in any way, shape, or form. That's slightly disappointing, and it gets a slightly disappointing result. Not very good for the Rimac, which was giving me nervous glances, shall we say. The next highest PI car is, well, the Maserati MC12, exactly 1 PI point lower than the Rimac 993. This is a fully blown GT1 race car, rather successful too. I think it won like every championship in a row for like 4 years. It was very, very good, this Maserati. And again, in the rain, it does not disappoint. It is, again, raining, FYI, which means not very much grip. We're carrying 76 miles an hour through that corner. That's absurd. It's one of the grippiest cars I have ever driven. That's 74.4 miles an hour up the hill in the rain while hitting a fence. Not the greatest run, and yet it still shatters the record from the Divo. Unfortunately, if you can do basic maths, 993 minus 958 is a positive number, which means it's significantly higher on the PI scale. And that means it doesn't really matter how fast this car goes. And by the way, it's extremely fast on the downhill, extremely fast overall, but it doesn't matter because it isn't lower in the PI scale, which means it's not as good in my book right here. So, I love the car, it's very good handling, it was not good enough for this challenge. So my next car was a whopping 2 PI lower 994. And this is the F50 GT, and this is a brute. It has less power, just 750, half the horsepower of the Bugatti, and half the wheels driven rear-wheel drive. However, that V12 is incredibly fast, and the car is incredibly grippy, even in the rain. I'm able to go flat out of these corners. It is an absolute brutal car. The F50 normal car may have been a little mundane, but this new one, the F50 GT from 1990, the oldest car on this list, in fact, certainly did not disappoint. Almost 75 miles an hour uphill in the rain, and since it was in the rain, I did not waste any time absolutely going, just because I wanted the track to be as dry as possible. The weather was a real problem here, let's be honest. It was autumn, which is not the best time to do this, because autumn means rain, or more rain than usual for Britain land. And you can see, it doesn't care about the rain, it just grips, it just turns. It has so much turn, it is unbelievable. That's a tightening apex corner, doesn't care. 74 mile an hour average, absolutely shatters the Divo's thing. Unfortunately, the Divo is some 30 PI points higher, or lower, so, yeah. So I moved to a road car. Well, not really a road car, it is a road car, but it doesn't look like one. The Apollo IE. It's the craziest looking car on this list, which is saying something. I don't know what drugs the designers were on when they made this car, but I want some of them. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but I admire the sheer creative liberties they took with the body. So, yeah, and I don't know what they did to it, but it is a darn good handling car. It is a really good handling car, up there with the F50. It's not quite as fast because it's a little bit heavier, but in terms of sheer handling, it is right up there with the F50, and it shows. It's not the fast 72.72, but it is so good to drive. It is significantly lower on the PI scale, just 984, but that's still some 20 PI higher than the Divo. But it is a good car to drive as we go down the hill once more. It is still a little down, so you get a little bit of oversteer, but nothing too serious. We want to keep it in third and try and keep the rest up as much as possible, and it is flying. That's some serious speed from the car. And while its looks may be polarizing to some people, you can't deny it's quick. Unfortunately, it's just a bit too high on the PI scale to beat that Divo. It was at this point I began to get a little desperate. So I called upon the ultimate production track weapon today, the 977 PI McLaren Senna. This is a purebred track car, really, that has some road wheel tires on, and that's about it. It's got the biggest rear wing I have ever seen on a road car. That's active aero. But it is rear-wheel drive and 800 horsepower. So, you would think it would do rather well, and, well, unfortunately, it doesn't. You see, it does not have the acceleration out of the corner. It has corner speed, but on the acceleration it does lack, and you can see just 70.4 up the hill. That's not good enough to beat that Divo. The race cars could do it fine. The problem is the race cars are too high a PI, and even the road cars that were too high a PI weren't challenging them. And this was posing a bit of an issue for me. You see, the Senna here is one of the best handling road cars you can physically get in this game for sheer speed, sheer handling, and sheer acceleration and braking. It's very hard to beat it in one package. But when you're doing a tight technical section with a lot of acceleration zones, a 1500 horsepower all-wheel drive car is going to beat a 800 horsepower rear-wheel drive car in the acceleration. And while it does go a lot faster on the downhill, it's not enough. And that posed a very serious problem for me. You see, I only had one last trick up my sleeve, really, which was the Sesto Elemento. This Lamborghini road illegal car, 570 horsepower, one of the least powerful car that was running, one of them for sure. And all-wheel drive would just do what we need that, and it weighs just 2,200 pounds, so it has a better power-weight ratio than that Chiron. Of course, the first run didn't exactly go to plan as I proceeded to run wide like a moron and carry too much speed. That was my fault, not the car's fault, so I decided to give it another go. And, yeah. This is by far and away the fastest car in Lamborghini's arsenal, with a PI of 948. It is also the lowest PI car that actually really stood a chance of beating that Divo, and no matter how much I tried, it couldn't do it. I kind of gave up after a while on doing the one run attempt that I was doing previous. The Chiron did it in one run. It was a very good one run, but it was still only one run. I could probably go faster with it if I did more and more attempts. And it looks promising. It's carrying a lot of speed. The problem is it doesn't have the acceleration. It has the traction from the all-wheel drive, but the acceleration just isn't there. And as a result, the average speed is not good. It's not bad, okay? None of these are bad, alright? Let me just get that out of the way. None of these are very bad. The problem is, the Divo is not pretty good. The Divo is very good. And that means these have to be exceptionally good, and they just aren't. At least for the PI. The F50, the MC12, I also tried the 599XX, that worked as well. Those vehicles, yes, they work. However, the lower you get, those are all way too high in the PI. If you go below the PI for a stock car, it just doesn't work. And that means I had to go to the tuning shop. And there were a lot of vehicles that I tried. I tried, Porsche 911 GT. I tried the Honda shop before I went just to make sure. They weren't anywhere close at all, being so low on the PI scale, 916. So I went to the tuning shop, and I went to an old champion, the Viper ACR. Now, the Viper ACR was very, very good against the Chiron. Hell, the Viper ACR won outright with a PI of, I think it's 893? Is what the ACR was to begin with, and that could beat the time I set with the Chiron up there. However, it wouldn't stand a chance, a hope in hell of going against Divo. So I had to modify, and the first thing at first, all-wheel drive. Key, critical. Second thing, make sure it's on racing tires. It is from the factory, which is good. Front aero, maximum downforce, shortest gear ratio as possible to give the best acceleration, and as many free parts as you could, so bigger rear tires, because those didn't cost any PI. Better gearbox, better differential, whole shebang like that, just to try and get every ounce of PI as much as possible, okay? And the Viper did quite well. I ended up with a PI of 939 as the lowest that I got it. And that did beat the ACR with the PI of 939, that's how low I got it. And that got me thinking. This is my tangent, okay? This is when I started to tangent off. What is the lowest PI you could get a car with upgrades, ignoring the stock car rule because that wasn't working? What is the lowest PI it would take to beat the Divo, period? Upgrades, allowed, do whatever the hell you want to do. You just had to beat it with the lowest PI. Now the next car I tested was an interesting one. The Renault Clio. I know you're thinking, why am I looking at a bright pink French hatchback? Well, because this is the Forza edition Renault Clio, and if you're new to Forza Horizon 4, the Renault Clio Forza edition is a bit funky, especially in A-Class. It is one of the grippiest cars in the game. despite being front-wheel drive and a hatchback, it can out-handle just about any A-class car or S1 class car you can throw at it. It's an absolute beast. So beast, I think it is banned from A-class competition. It's absolutely nuts. However, in S2 class, which I'm competing in, I was afraid that it wouldn't be very good because it had the turbo rally engine with 700 horsepower going to all four wheels, which is significantly more than it was initially. I didn't have to worry though, because yes, it was not as controllable as, say, the Viper or the Divo, but it was seriously quick, and you could just about keep it under control. And with a PI of 931, it was 8 PI lower than the Viper, and it did 73 miles an hour, which is just under half a mile an hour faster than the Divo. That's pretty good. That's very good, in fact. And you wouldn't expect it, because it's a hot hatchback, so I guess in terms of the practicality sense, this is the best car in the game for this, because it's so fast accelerating, it's just about controllable enough, and if you get it right, it will absolutely destroy a supercar. But I thought I could do a little bit better. I was almost considering leaving it at that, with the hatchback being the best. But then I remembered one more race car that everyone forgets. The KTM Crossbow GT4. Now the KTM Crossbow is an interesting one. You see, I started out and it did a blisteringly fast, it did almost 76 miles an hour average. 76 mile an hour average. With a PI of 934. Now that is worse than the Clio, however, it was so far ahead of the Clio, I knew I could do better, so I started taking bits off of it. I just kept detuning it. I took a part or two off, put the engine, I took the engine, I took out the aerial atom engine, which was in it to begin with, put in the turbo rally, so that dropped the horsepower down by a fair amount. Then I took the brakes off, then I'd make the front tires smaller, then I did this and I did that, and I just kept taking parts off until I got my final PI. Now, this car is stupid. It has a PI of S1 class, 898. 898! We are over 60 PI down on that Divo. And at this point, it is all down to carrying momentum through the corners. I had given up trying to do one or two attempts. I was just trying to get the best possible time possible. Now I know, yes, if I spent the same amount of time I spent on the KTM as I did with the Divo would go much faster than the KTM. However, it isn't about that, okay? I just wanted to see what I could do, so I allowed it on this one time. Alright, cool. Got that out of the way. It was all about carrying the perfect line. This thing couldn't even get up to 100 miles an hour on the turns, on the acceleration zones. That's how slow it was accelerating. It was all about carrying corner speed. It had to carry at least 60 miles an hour on every single corner. So this average didn't drop down too much. And it didn't. It just did it by the skin of its damn teeth. But the S1 class KTM did 73.5 miles an hour dead. That's stupid, in fact, I think. It's utterly bizarre. I don't fully understand how it did what it did, but it did what it did. And you could probably, a better driver can, we're not opening that can of worms, but you could probably get it lower, like 897, 895. But at that point, it's all down to the perfect line, every gear change for it. It's all about driver skill at that point. The top of S1 class is really the physical limit of grip and acceleration you can have to beat that Divo. So, It is very much possible to beat the Divo, but if you want to do it with a stock car, you're not going to. There's no stock car currently in Horizon 4 that is capable of beating it for a smaller amount of PI. But if you know how to use your upgrades correctly, you can beat it at a ridiculously low rate. But that is going to be it for this episode of Forza Horizon 4. We'll be back with more.